Welcome to the Atlantic Construction Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Arsenault. We're extremely excited to bring you this podcast media platform, bringing together the construction community in Atlantic Canada in conversation. On today's episode, we have Merit Industries. Our guests are Tim Houtsma, Greg Schofield, and Jason Noack. We'll be chatting about Merit Industries as a company, structural and miscellaneous steel, design build, and some of the interesting projects Merit's been working on. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Atlantic Construction Podcast. Today, we're very happy to have Merit Industries with us. We have Tim Houtsma, CEO, professional engineer. Tim's also a board member with CANS and a board member at the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction. And we have Greg Schofield, COO, 20 years plus experience in the steel industry in Halifax and Atlantic Canada. Greg is involved in estimating, project management, and wears many different hats. We have Jason Noack, project manager, 14 years at Merit, done several landmark structural steel and miscellaneous metal projects, notably recently Queen's Mark, Nova Center, and many others, and recently the Brian Mulrooney project at St. FX. Jason's a certified Gold Seal project manager, and he's also a chair on Merit's Josh Committee for Safety, and I think that's a good starting point. We'll just dive in and just chat a little bit, Jason, about the safety at Merit and sort of how you guys keep things under wraps there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us. Yeah, for safety, we have a great safety program, a great safety manager. We're continuously promoting the safety culture in our organization that our staff buys into. We have competent employees doing the work. We don't cut corners. I just said, we have I chair the Josh Committee. We have a well-run Josh Committee that I'm happy to say, like our two owners, Tim and Greg, they help push initiatives and deal with things as they come up. We don't like things sitting on our minutes for months and months, so we just want to hammer it, get it done, 100%. And do it safe and continue to push that for everybody in the organization. Yeah, that's great. And I know just for the listeners, when you're talking about 100 employees and 40 to 60 guys on the shop floor and installers, and I'd say that's a little more vast. It was a tough job, and it's amazing that you guys are doing a great job of that. And then Greg, just tell us a bit about Merit. Tell us a bit about the history and
Sure.
Just tell us a bit of the story of how things kind of came together.
Yeah, so Merit's been around a long time. We've been in business for about 38 years. So in 1983, we were incorporated, and back then it was the owners were David Olton and Connie Olton ran the business, and then the management team bought out the business. I think it was around 2007. And we continued to work and grow the business through all these transitions. And then eventually Tim and I bought the rest of the remaining interest in the company. And we've been doing that for almost 2 years.
Yep, 2 years.
2 years. And we continue to look for new ways and to grow the business and try new things and grow the structural side of the business and whatever else leads us along.
That's great. So tell our listeners who don't know a lot about Merit, anyone in the construction industry who doesn't have a lot of knowledge about miscellaneous metals and structural steel, just kind of tell us about what Merit does and how you fit into the...
Sure. So our core business is structural steel and miscellaneous metals, and then that would be like your box stores and your retail stores. We do a lot of those through Burnside and Halifax. So we've done several Sobeys over the years, and we've done like the box stores like Best Buys and those kind of things. And we've done a lot of tilt-up with general contractors. It's very popular in the Burnside area. And miscellaneous metals, we like to tackle anything. We say nothing's too small, nothing's too crazy. We'll try, fancy stairs and railings and whatever you can imagine. We'll take a stab at it. We don't always get them, but we will price pretty much
I
anything.
imagine the miscellaneous metals gets pretty intricate on some jobs.
It can be complicated just because you're trying to envision what somebody else's vision and making their dream. So
it's not always the case in construction. You got to try and build someone's vision and make it work.
And hopefully they align, right? Because sometimes they don't, and it gets to be a little tricky sometimes getting it all figured out.
So what else is included in miscellaneous metals, like other than railings? Like how much of that? Like what's the definition of that scope?
It could be anything. I mean, we didn't do this particular project. What I'm thinking of is a big whale that we priced one day. I'm not sure who did the whale, but it's around.
The whale at the Nova Center.
That's at the Nova Center.
We put a number to that, and we think we had the right number, but
I seen that sketch. Someone showed me the tender invite or something about
Sure.
that.
And
So
we would tackle stuff like that.
is it built now?
I'm pretty sure it's up
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
built, it's
visible
painted,
now.
and it looks
What,
awesome.
What street is it on? Is it on the front on the BMO side? No, on the back side.
It's on the. It's
I
by
haven't
the
seen
Grant
it.
Thornton. It is by the BMO
I drive
entrance.
by there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
okay.
right when you,
I'd
it's
probably
right
walk
where you
right
drive
by
in
it.
to go to the underground parking.
Sure, I
lot.
walked right by it.
Yeah. So we'll price stuff like that, and,
Yeah.
we've done some crazy things in the past. I'm just, for one reason, when it comes to me, I'll tell you later.
Yeah,
I
you'll
can't remember
think
right
of
now.
it. You'll think of it. Well,
Hasn't
let's
been a while.
give Tim a chance to chime in here. Tim Houtsma. I know, like our team at Atlantic Podcast keeps telling me, like, we don't want to bring up the pandemic, we don't want to bring up COVID, but you're in an industry that has quite a intricate supply chain and stuff.
Yeah.
So just speak to what it's been like.
So, I mean, compared to the rest of the world in COVID, we actually have been really fortunate. Here in Nova Scotia, I think everybody recognizes that we've been very fortunate to be in our bubble and relatively safe and whatnot. So when COVID hit a year ago, basically, the construction industry sort of banded together and figured out, can we work safely through COVID? And we worked with the Construction Association and with Safety Nova Scotia and with the province, and in construction, we're used to dealing with safety-sensitive issues and working safely and whatnot. So it was really for us a matter of implementing new protocols and ways of protecting yourself. So I mean, we're used to wearing glasses and steel-toed boots. We put face masks on and face shields and whatnot, and we found ways to work safely through COVID. So Nova Scotia was very fortunate. So construction just kept on rolling for our shop operations. Our welders they're always more than 6 feet apart, so we just kept on fabricating. There's been certainly some hiccups in terms of transportation and some delivery issues and whatnot, but we've been able to manage our way
Strictly
through that.
with lead times on that.
Yeah. But most governments around the world, and steel's very much a global commodity, they recognize that steel builds infrastructure is hospitals and schools, and we need to keep those projects going. So there's very much an appetite to keep those plants open and keep them operating and stuff like that. So compared to like the restaurant industry and whatnot, I haven't missed a day in the office, and we've just kept on going, and we've 0 cases, knock on wood, at Merit Industries, and we've been able to operate safely ever since.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to like, a lot of people in the construction community, not just in Atlantic Canada, but all over, just how the reaction was to the pandemic. Everyone kind of rallied together, even though it's hard to price jobs that are 6 months out or a year out when you don't know, especially when it first comes along.
For
and
sure.
There's so much uncertainty, and especially for you guys where you're 7 days or 14 days for your steel prices.
Yeah.
And then on the best of times, it's hard to gauge up and down all the time. So what was that like to manage the?
It's crazy. I mean,
Crazy
I
is the
remember
word.
pricing one job, and I got prices from the local warehouse the day before, and I priced the job, and then after I'm done closing and send my number out, one of my estimators goes, the price has changed again. It's gone up another $80 a ton. I'm like, the price is already out.
So 80 a ton for our listeners who aren't that familiar, is that would be a lot, right?
It's a good amount.
A good
Yeah,
amount, yeah.
It's a big jump, and
So
it
you're
was
using thousands of tons on some
for
of these
sure.
jobs,
And,
right?
and this was ongoing there for a while. It's a little more stable now, but it's still high, right? It's not where we're used to it being. Right?
But still not as high as wood is right now, though, right? I mean, because we all know softwood lumber's up 3-4 times, plywood's double,
Yeah,
steel's a lot more too, but not as much.
Before Christmas, I'll admit, I smirked a little bit because the cost of 2x4 had doubled or tripled, right? And at that point,
You
steel
love
hadn't
that.
started to escalate. And then come January, February, it really started creeping up there, and I got a taste of that. But I mean, we've been able to manage our way through, and we've got good relationships with our customers, and they understand the nature of the market and whatnot, and you find a way to get it done.
Yeah, that's great.
For sure.
And it's great that you three are on here on our show, because Atlantic Construction Podcast is what we like at the podcast. We like to get 2 or 3 people from one company where you have the visionaries and the owners, and you have the guys like Jason who are making the operations, around project managers out there, managing that end, so we can have the table discussion of, we can see all aspects. And I know you're involved heavily in estimating and budgeting and that too.
Sure,
Greg.
yeah.
Maybe Jason, just take us through like a typical scenario when a job gets bid and you get a PO, sort of like how it works from kind of start to finish. I know, you've worked on some big ones lately, and just
for sure. Just trying to think of it, because I mean, I could be talking hours about just one process.
We need more time on this show.
Yeah,
I think.
but what really comes down to, Vash, I like to say this, the saying, teamwork makes the dream work, right? So the good thing, we have an engaged staff, right from the pre-construction to project completion. We all respect each other and respect each other's jobs. At a time, we have typically 60 plus projects on the go at a time. So, clear communication and transparency is key in executing these projects smooth, safe, and successfully. In-house, we have our own detailing and engineering department. We do a lot of our modeling on computers, which is really neat. Basically, you can visualize things and...
What's the software that you're using?
So we're on Tekla. We're on Tekla.
Okay.
So Tekla is a 3D structural steel modeling software. So
so it's for structural steel. Yeah.
So for 99% of our projects, unless it's just a house beam or something like that, we will create a complete three-dimensional model of the structure, right down to the last nut, bolt, and washer. Right. So that all gets put together in CAD. And now, especially today, if it fits in the model, it fits outside, right? So that 3D model, we produce our shop drawings out of that. We also produce CNC files that get fed to our fabrication machinery. So nobody touches any of that data, and it goes straight to the machine. The machine cuts it, drills it, copes it, whatever.
So that automated process is a huge part of your operation.
You say, a picture says 1,000 words, right? So, it helps us review and strategize for our fabrication and erection sequences, how we can build frames. And I didn't touch on more, back to kind of the safety stuff. What we try to do prefab everything as much as we can possible in a controlled environment in our shop, which reduces, the risks of person hours on site. Yeah.
Right on, guys. Maybe just to stick to that, maybe just talk about how many employees are at Merit, how many on the shop floor, how many involved in estimating, just to give an idea and context about how you're.
So on the shop floor, I guess we have around 40, and then in the office, the admin staff is probably 8 with accounting included in that. We got about 4 full-time estimators, 4 full-time project managers, Tim and myself, and our CFO who's not here today.
3 engineers.
3 engineers. Can't forget the engineers. They're here to remind.
Yeah, you don't leave them out. They don't like that.
No, I'll hear about that later. I'll be on the drive home, right?
And then as for in the field, we used unionized ironworkers. Shout out to Local 752. They're trained professionals. They work safe. They're readily available. The good thing about it is the pool, right? Whether you need 2 guys or you got to ramp up for a dozen guys, they're there. They're trained. You know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So that's.
So you guys are union labor.
Yeah. In the field.
Staff.
In the field.
Yeah.
And then for installing only.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct. And this is because this is an Atlantic podcast. We have an office and operations in Newfoundland as well. So would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Local 764 too.
Yeah. So that union is not consolidated with the 4 there's a different steel union in Newfoundland.
In each and every
because that would be
Canadian
different from the carpenters union, and certain unions are consolidated, certain aren't. Yeah. Well, that's really neat. Maybe it's early to dive into design build, but because I know once we start talking about that, it's gonna take us right to the end. But maybe just between the 3 of you guys, I know design build is kind of Merit's sort of main offerings. That's safe. Is that a?
It's a big part of our business model, and I think it comes down to. It's kind of a reflection of the culture that we have at Merit, where it's a lot about customer service.
Right.
So, I guess the sort of the core aspect to our design build approach is really listening to what our customers need and want, And so that's we listen to what they need.
What makes a customer a good design build customer?
A customer who
'Cause I'm
already
curious to
has
who knows what they want, or
has a pretty good idea of what they want. We're not set up to sort of work through multiple iterations and a whole bunch of stakeholders and stuff like that. We need a customer who's got a bit of a handle on what they want.
So is that the first thing you guys do, is kind of filter the customer to say, is it worth our
If
our
you
time and effort?
if you really don't know what you want to build, we'll say, you know what, go find an architect, go find a structural engineer, and work through that with them, because that's a business model to work through that process. But if you already have a pretty good handle on what you need, come to us, and then we'll find the way to what we really bring to the table is we bring an optimization of the whole package, not just the structural steel, but an optimization of what the customer needs, whatever they're going to make or produce or whatever, with the whole building envelope. So I'll work with the siding and the wall guys and try to optimize. You know what? If I make my roof structure a little bit shallower, they buy less wall panels, and maybe it costs me an extra $500 in the roof structure, but it saves them $1,000 in the walls. And overall, the project is $500 cheaper.
So you're collaborating with other sub-trades
With the whole
that
team.
tie into that building.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which would include who mostly? Roofers?
Oh, roofers. It could be the concrete
Anyone.
guy. It could
Cladding.
be anything. So we try to build. We like to work with like the team spirit. So we're trying to. When we're working with, it's usually a general contractor most times, and they've got together the people they like to work with, and we work as a team to come up with the best price and the best solution for their client at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we look at the build, really sort of a holistic perspective on the building. So there's all kinds of ways to put together roofs and walls and stuff like that. And we like to put in details that just make the building work better, right?
Can you give an example? Can you give a, like,
Here's
just
a very-
something that comes to mind?
here's a very
I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just
No,
for some
it's good.
context.
So if you've got a low roof marrying into a wall, right? Low roof, and I like to put a girt at like a foot above the roof level, because it gives the roofer an opportunity to build his roof up and have a nice termination at that girt, and then they'll build like a steel stud wall on top of that girt.
For a parapet wall?
Well, into like if you had another story going up from
Right,
a low
right,
roof
okay.
type
Yeah.
thing. And it's just a really nice detail that's easy to waterproof and makes the building perform better. It's an extra piece of steel, but ultimately we want to give the customer a building that doesn't leak and performs well. And having somebody on board that's thinking about the details like that, and is willing to work with the siding guy and the roofer and whatnot to come up with that detail.
Yeah.
That's like ultimately, whether the steel package costs $1 million or $1 million plus 50, if their roof leaks, it doesn't matter,
It
right?
doesn't matter,
Everybody wants a building that performs well.
Well, and that gives context to the listeners too, because when you guys say design build, like, your design build the structural steel scope
correct,
of the
yeah.
building, but you're also taking into perspective, like, how can we make the building envelope, more weatherproof, or with our design, and how can we make it easier for the roofers? How can we make it easier for the guys doing the steel stud?
Yeah.
And that's where the team model works, because there has to be some level of trust about what you're building together, and you're all trying to build the best building you can from within the budget that's been supplied, right?
Right. So having you guys on the job, it's you're making other trades' lives easier, and you're saving costs.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah,
Client appreciates it as well.
that's right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, what else about design build? I mean, what like can you give examples of some recent design builds, or some ones that stand out in your memory, or like any showpiece projects that were design build for you guys?
Well, as Tim and Greg were saying, like the tilt up steel, like that's kind of our bread and butter. So I mean, like right now, if you drive just going towards the airport on the highway, you look to the right, we're doing the HAA cargo building. So that's a nice tilt up. Another one we're doing closer in Dartmouth on Lancaster Drive, we're doing First Baptist Church.
Okay.
So whether it's like churches, warehouses, new office buildings.
I see on your website like potato barns or anything along those lines, like barns and.
Well, that's a good one. Tim could probably talk to for design.
Oh, yeah?
because that gets away from like.
Well, I know your wife's from PEI, and I'm from PEI, so we have to bring up potatoes in some context.
So the potato barns on PI that was a neat one, because Cavendish Farms needed a potato storage facility, and they're traditionally potatoes are stored at the farmers' locations, sort of spread across PEI, and they needed a central state-of-the-art facility. So Cavendish Farms came to the general contractor in sort of March and April. They toured some sites and looked at some technology and whatnot in April, and the general contractor came to us to talk about pricing, and we developed a bit of a scheme and an approach, and we signed the deal with the owner in May. So then we went through detailed design, and the barns that we put up on PI, they're basically exactly the same. Very interesting, intricate system associated with ventilation and whatnot. Like there's ventilation coming through the floor into the potato pile, and then it needs to go out through the sidewalls. Well, we came up with a innovative structural design that actually took advantage of the space that was needed for the
Square
ventilation.
feet. How many square feet?
I was afraid that you were going to ask that. I said, I need to know how many tons of potatoes go into those. So to give you a little bit of context, in those buildings, there's 4 cells of potatoes, and the potatoes are 90 feet wide. I believe that they're 300 feet long, and the potatoes are piled in there 20 feet deep. All right. So we got an award in
French fries.
That's a lot of French fries.
A lot of French fries, is right.
We got the award in May, went through detailed design, started fabrication. We started putting steel up on the 1st of July, and they were putting potatoes in those buildings in the 1st of October. So just like
6 months.
Compared to the delivery from procurement to potatoes in the barn, versus a traditional approach with an architect and an engineer and tendering and all that stuff, just blew it out of the water.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why that job went forward as a structural building, because of the timeline that we could save them, and the reason they need to get in so quickly, and it all just came together quite nicely.
I believe that was all galvanized too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So all that steel was galvanized for those buildings. It's a very humid atmosphere.
So why would it have to be galvanized there? Just because it's exposed?
The potatoes, as they, I'm straying.
Of the food prep area.
You're the guy from PEI. You should know this.
I'm not the guy who's supposed to be answering questions here.
As they're stored, there's a lot of humidity coming off of the potatoes, right? So just in that, so the atmosphere inside those buildings is like 98, 99, 100% humidity, right. And there's condensation and whatnot. So in order to protect the steel from all that moisture, everything in the structure in the building was galvanized.
Right.
Yeah.
And so is it galvanized on many projects, or is that a rare thing?
That's a pretty rare thing.
Pretty rare, yeah.
I mean, if I can get up on my soapbox.
Because I'm guessing that's going to increase the steel cost by quite a considerable amount.
That will increase the steel cost. Like in a regular building, oftentimes the spec will call for the steel to be primed. But for a building like this one, for your average office building and whatnot, the most practical approach is actually to leave the steel unpainted. And it will not rust under sort of normal room conditions. And putting a coat of primer on it is really not an efficient use of money, because you don't need it.
And you're referring to steel that's not just enclosed in a wall system, but exposed steel.
No, like inside a building, in a
Right.
climate controlled building, you don't need to paint your steel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
I think we should talk about the IMP hangar and the
Yeah.
truss, the long truss that's in the front that lets the plane in.
Right. That's the one Jason mentioned, right? Just a few minutes
Yeah.
ago.
No,
He mentioned one that's in front of that, which if you're
That's a
driving
cargo
on the
building.
That's
highway.
the new cargo one. That's BD Stevens.
Yeah, the one they're going to talk to
we're
is
building that one out. The IP hangar we built probably, I'd like to say 10, 15 years ago,
Yep.
probably.
Yeah.
And it was probably the largest job that Tim's ever designed. So,
Yeah.
and one of the largest jobs I'd priced at that point in my career. So I think it'd be interesting to talk about
So this
this.
is a cargo hangar for the planes to be stored in.
Yeah, so
they're not
you
right.
know how you had to put the other supports underneath when you erected. So I think that was an interesting story to tell. So
the IMP hangar out there, that's the white and blue one.
Okay. Can you see it from the highway?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I would.
That's the
because
first building you see when you come up on the
pretty
airport.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's the 3 buildings
In front.
in that neighborhood. We're putting up the steel for the one that's under construction right now. The Gateway Logistics is a tilt that BD did a few years ago, and then the IMP hangar we put up 10 or 12 years ago. It's IMP maintains aircraft in there. The door opening for it is 300 feet clear. That's the widest clear opening east of Montreal. So I'd been with Merid for probably 5 or 6 years, and we won the contract to do this design build for this hangar. And
Got to factor in the wingspan, right?
Wingspan, and actually the tail of the planes is a big deal, right?
the
To make
height.
sure that you have that they can fit in and that you don't have to let the air out of the plane's tires.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what won that one for us? I mean, we worked with Lindsay's on that, and we were able to sort of stage the construction in such a way that we could build half the hangar, so one of the sets of doors plus the center core, and get them in there and get them finishing it, and then build the other half of the hangar instead of building the entire perimeter wall and waiting type thing. But the 300-foot opening that Greg...
It's 300 feet. I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
How wide it was. I was waiting to hear it.
We had that one for you.
What?
We had that answer for you.
Yeah. What won it for us was it just because it's such a massive truss, we couldn't prefabricate that in our shop. So you're stick building it in the air, right? And so you build out a piece of the bottom core and the top core and the webs that like lace it together and whatnot. And what we did was we took a bunch of the wall columns that from the other hangar and we used them as temporary supports to support the truss as we built it out across the opening. And that was an approach that one of our guys from Local 752 came up with, how to sort of provide that temporary support, and then you finally put it all together and you bolt it up, and then you can
A site
pull it
worker
out.
from the union was
Yeah.
involved. So do you want to mention his name or maybe not?
He didn't work
Totally
for
up
us.
to you.
Yeah,
Totally up to you.
that
Don't
Rob,
have to.
so Rob Ranka.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just sure he'd appreciate the shout out. He'd
Yeah.
be pretty proud of that.
No, so one of the things that sometimes folks, I went to university and whatnot, and you don't realize the amount of knowledge and insight that guys that are on the tools have. And sometimes that's overlooked by consultants and whatnot, but we've got a great collaborative relationship with Local 752 and our iron workers and whatnot. And this is something that I say if I have to speak to a group, pay attention to what the guys outside have to say, because they've put up more steel than you have designed, and oftentimes they know the best, the smartest, the safest, the quickest way to put that up. So for any engineers and architects out there listening, listen to the guys that are outside that actually do the work.
Well, it's amazing that you brought that up, and it's so true. Like some of these subtrades, whether it's structural steel or masonry or even painting and millwork, like these guys there's so much depth to each scope, and it's like impossible to know everything. And someone who has 20, 30 years experience, it's hard to replace that. So it's good to give a
I
shout
rely
out to
on the
these
site guys for a lot of things
Yeah.
too. A lot of those, like when you get into the misc metals and trying to figure out these supports or how to get things in buildings. I mean, you can see it on a drawing, but the reality is how do you actually get it there and make it there? Yeah, you gotta weigh in on those guys.
That's really cool. So that would have been more intensive on the site. You still prefab a lot of it in the shop,
Yeah.
like you always
Yeah.
have to, but that was built like a lot of it on site.
Yeah, all of the sort of the smaller wall framing and whatnot was done in the shop and trucked out there. But the top and the bottom chords of that truss actually, they were so big and so heavy that we had them brought. They exceeded the capacity of our craneage in our shop. So we brought them direct to site. We field drilled them, and we actually changed the shop details to accommodate the fact that we bought a piece of steel that was 60 foot 2 inches long, because we didn't want to cut. Like if you got a section of steel that weighs 300 pounds a foot, that's a lot of steel to cut off, right? So we changed the details to reflect the fact that it came in at 60 foot 2 inches, and adjusted the bolt locations and stuff like that to take advantage of that piece of steel.
That must have been a tough job to price, Greg.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
It's
Wasn't
not
just
like
me.
you see one like that across your desk every month.
It was two of us actually working on that one, because
Yeah.
we had priced several options in order to find the correct
Right.
price, the most economical price. So there was a lot of long nights on that one.
bet.
And if you want to
Hopefully
see,
it turned out okay.
Oh yeah.
We're still here.
yeah. And if you're interested to see a lot of our past projects, you can visit our website at www.merid.ca. You know, we have a lot of showcase a lot of our previous projects, and you know, since I'm on that topic, then as well, you know, you can follow us on LinkedIn at Merid Industries and on Twitter at Merid Industries as well.
You guys on Insta as well?
No, 2 social media platforms is enough for now.
Two's
Right?
enough. Two's too many.
Maybe in time, but you know, check us out on there, follow us, and you can see what we're up to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, maybe I see like you know, some more other current projects. I know the Dal Art Center is kind of a one that would have some buzz in the city. I know you guys are working on that one. Any comments on that one? How that one's going, or just the process there?
Well, well,
Are
Greg,
you guys doing
you
the
talk about.
reno and the addition, or just the addition?
It's not my personal project, but I know our project manager. It's one of those projects. Any kind of project
alright.
that when you're dealing right in the downtown core, it's a tight site, right? So
For
a lot of
deliveries,
deliveries for everything, steel erection, cranes, anything logistics wise. So you know, a lot of planning involved. And as I said, you know, just weighing in on our team and you know, trying to meet the client's expectations. So, but other than that, you know, we have what's other cool? I know we're doing the new Porsche dealership on Kemp Road. There's a tilt up with a structural portion on the front of that. We're always doing like a reinforcing work for new fit ups in existing buildings. You know, we do a lot of we're supplying steel for a lot of wharves and barges and bridges and building additions.
With the Brian Mulrooney job, were you on that? Were you working on that one, Jason?
Yeah, I was there for a few
Did
years,
you
couple
just
years.
finish that recently? The last couple of years?
Last year and a half ago.
got
or
so many projects in
Yeah,
the guy, you can't
no, we do. We do.
A little
We do a
longer
lot.
than we thought.
Because
it
you were
would be.
working on Queens Mark, Nova
Yeah,
Center.
Queens Park, Nova Center. Yeah, no, there's lots of there's a lot to pick from. But you know, something else we're doing that's pretty cool too is they're doing a lot of structural framing on some really cool homes, custom homes around the province
Right.
and in Newfoundland. Right?
Is that just in places where they need load-bearing steel, or is it just for other reasons?
It's an architect that's come up with just a really challenging building that you can't build it out of wood anymore. The cantilevers, the clear spans, and whatnot. So
Right.
And once you do a few of them, and it kind of people know.
I've seen some photos on your website
Yeah, that's
of some
right.
of
Thank
those
you. Yeah,
homes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and people know we do that stuff. So I mean, we don't shy away from the challenging stuff. We like the challenging work. You know, we gotta.
And they're extravagant designs.
Yeah, they're cool, right? Yeah, exactly. We know we got a dedicated. You know, we have some great fitters and welders in our shop. You know, that like taking on the challenge as well. So it's yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the other thing that I would suggest that we'd be good at is we do a lot of work on the Halifax Harbor bridges, right? So the McDonald Bridge and the McKay Bridge. Last summer, the HHP did a program where they were inspecting the cables on the McKay Bridge.
Yeah.
And you just want to make sure that you keep an eye on that. It's kind of like checking your oil on your car, right? You
So you guys are responsible for the traffic.
Oh, we traffic control the HHP. But so what they do is they need to look inside the main suspension cable and evaluate and make sure that the cable is still safe, right? So what we did last year and what we've done a number of times is we'll build a platform underneath the cable and wrap it and close it, and we will cut the sheathing off of the cable, pry apart the cable, so that the engineers can look at the cable and make sure that it's still safe. Then we'll wrap it back up again and take the platform off. All doesn't sound so bad, except the last two have been. The last one last summer was at the very top of the tower. So you're building a platform at the very top of one of the towers in the McKay Bridge, subject to
100.
every bit of 150 to 200 feet above the bridge deck. Yeah.
And then you get the water below, so it's another.
From the water, it's probably 200 feet.
Yeah, I would say We get
So-
some interesting shots.
We get some cool
pictures of
shots,
that
yeah.
as well, yeah.
Yeah. But
We'll have to throw some of those shots up on the screen.
Oh, for sure.
We'll find some of those for
Yeah,
you.
that's really neat.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, to try to find a way to make sure that that's safe and that you're not damaging the bridge and just sort of the logistic, because the bridge is designed to have a big donut or a sausage wrapped around the cable has been interesting, and I mean, we're fortunate we do work very well and very closely with HHB and with our consultants, and we find ways to solve those problems.
So is your labor force there working on that bridge like evening shifts and like whenever you're there?
Whenever it needs to be done.
Whenever
Yeah.
it needs to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's usually day work, but
It's usually
sometimes
day
it's
work.
evening. Yeah, we've been there a few nights.
And it's not like you'd have like 40 people to pick from to send them to the bridge to work at that height. Like it'd just be there'd be
It's
only
a
be a
small-
handful of people that
It's
would
a
be that
smaller
comfortable
crew.
to.
Yeah. You won't catch me up there looking at anything.
It's like you're not going to catch 50 feet on a scissor lift. It's good for me. Blowing in the wind.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you gone up to him?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I like about this job is I get to go to heights every now and again.
Tell us about it.
Was able to, you know what, I need to inspect the top
Should
of
have
that
wore
tower.
a GoPro.
Yeah. And so I myself and one of our iron workers and another one of our engineer went up to the tower, because if you're going to attach a platform to the tower, you really need to see, like the drawings don't tell the whole tale, right? You need to see what's up there and what you can hang on to and whatnot. So I enjoy that part of my work.
That's pretty neat.
And that technically doesn't fall in the CEO job description.
I don't know. That's
But
How many CEOs do you know climb bridge towers?
That's awesome that you went up there. That's really neat.
Maybe we should talk about the salt.
I was just going to say that on the
Interesting
top
project
of
we have on
major
the go right
project.
now.
Pugwash Salt Mine?
Yeah, we have that on the go right now. So that's another one of our milestones and larger projects that we've taken on in the last 20 years probably. We been at that now for just about a year.
Yeah, we would have started about
Does
a year
that mean
ago.
you have been on site for a year, or you started bidding?
Started working bidding on
Right,
it,
yeah,
getting it rolling.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Tim's really involved in that one, so that's why I picked it, so I won't have to talk as much.
So
We're picking on you, Tim.
at the salt mine, salt eats steel. So they've got an existing head frame, the structure that they pull the salt out of the mine up out of the ground, and then it goes off for processing and whatnot. But because it's a salt mine and just deterioration and whatnot, the lifespan of one of those structures is some 30 or 40 years. So their existing one is deteriorating, and they've got an ore body in the ground that's got another 30 years in it. So they decided to replace the head frame. And so what we've been doing for the past year is figuring out how to build the head frame. So this is not a design build, but we're working with a consultant set of drawings. But the big challenge with this one is it's a shutdown job. So their business model is based on them being able to continuously pull salt out of the ground and sell it. And if you shut that mine down, you eliminate that source of revenue. So everything needs to be planned perfectly, so that we hit that shutdown. We'll shut the mine down for 6 weeks, and it can't be 7 weeks. It can't be 8 weeks. We need to minimize the amount of time that mine is shut down.
On intervals, or like 6 weeks at a time?
We're gonna knock the head like on July the 5th. We're gonna start knocking down the existing head frame, and then 6 weeks later they're gonna start pulling salt back out of the ground. And this is not sort of you can go in and do a little bit and come back out and stuff like that. You knock it down.
So how large is the crew?
So we'll probably peak out at probably 40 or 50 iron workers on site to put that together.
And that would be like
That's a big
more than
that's a
typical.
big job.
Usually it's probably 10, 20, 30 around those numbers. Wow.
Yeah, but it's a tough environment, and just the shutdown nature and the amount of planning that we need to do is a challenge. But
Puts a lot of pressure
yeah,
on the guys too. On
yeah,
the site.
yeah.
Yeah, we should maybe even talk about some of the jobs we do over in Newfoundland, I was thinking, because,
100%. So would that one be coated with anything special because it's a salt mine?
yes.
I just wanted to bring that up before.
Very fancy paint system.
Greg's cut me off again. Here.
Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, so a fancy 3-coat paint system on that, and lots and lots and lots of QA, QC
Do you know
around that.
what's in
piece.
the paint? What kind of chemicals or anything?
I'm a steel
Going
guy.
too deep there.
I'm a steel guy.
By others.
What's that?
By others.
By others. I love that. I love those two words on a quote, right? When you said tilt up for the HIA hanger, like you said tilt up steel, you mean like a combination of, or what does it mean for our listeners that don't?
The tilt up's the concrete.
Yeah,
We're
but
doing
it's
the
a
steel
combination
framing
of-
on the inside of it. And
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So they would cast the concrete on the ground and then tilt it up.
Yes. Yeah, I just didn't know if there's another kind of a steel erection that's
So
called
they
tilt
would
up.
then brace it, and then we would infill it with our structural steel.
Right.
We have a lot of
And that
partnerships with
happens
those
a lot.
jobs.
Yeah, so tilt up concrete is kind of like structural steel along with that, just
Yeah.
in tandem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
What were you going to say, Greg? What would you say about
talking Newfoundland.
I was trying to get over
yeah.
Newfoundland because I don't
Yes.
want the Newfoundland people that work for us
Don't
upset.
want to make them feel left out.
So we want them to know
This is
that we're-
Atlantic.
That's right.
Fully Atlantic.
We understand this is an Atlantic podcast, so we do a lot of design builds over there. But we were talking about big projects, and so I was thinking about our project with Allied,
Yep.
who we've had 40 or 50 workers on that particular project as well, and we did that, or we just finished that probably about 6 months ago, I guess, maybe. The job that keeps going.
Legalization of marijuana has been a huge boon for the construction industry because there's been a lot of buildings built for growing operations. So the project that Greg's talking about is a 2-story grow up cultivation facility in just outside of St. John's. And
Most of them are warehouse themed, which would include structural steel.
Yeah, this particular one had a mezzanine in the whole level as well. So the footprint was around 100,000 square feet. So with the mezzanine, which was covered almost the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we're looking at around 200,000 square foot warehouse in Newfoundland. So it's a big project for us.
When was that completed, or are you still working on that?
It's done now. Yeah. So I think we started working on that a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah,
I
and we
started pricing it.
basically finished the structural. I mean, a big thing in Newfoundland, if you're going to work in Newfoundland, is you don't want to be erecting steel through the winter in Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm.
So we finished erection. I think we broke ground and we started in June or July, and we were putting up our last couple of pieces of steel in December, just before Christmas.
Right, so that's a big thing in taking into perspective is your schedule and when you're going to be on site.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially in Newfoundland, but here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the climate's somewhat similar.
Similar, but
colder.
It's not nearly as harsh as
Not as harsh with the high
the wind
winds and
they have there makes everything
lots
really
of water
cold.
close by. Yeah.
Another
Some
notable-
moisture.
Yeah, I think another notable project was the Coast Guard, because it's like anybody that goes to St. John's, if they're down around the waterfront, they're going to be able to see this building that we put up. It's kind of on the other side of the harbor where people aren't, but if you look across, there's the Coast Guard building, which is a
nice red and white building. Looks
nice
like a
red
ship.
and white building. Yeah.
But that was a nice big conventional steel building, right? And if you want to see the framing on that one, we got some pictures on our website there. If you want to actually see the steel component to it, right?
Cool. And so, how long does it, like, just for an average, like, with what you mentioned there, the 200,000 square feet, like, how long does it take typically to install that? What size of crew? Because that sounds massive.
20 weeks.
Yeah, we were in that neighborhood. Yeah.
For 20 weeks, we wouldn't have started with 50. You know, we probably would
Yeah,
start
at
with
some point you
a crew of 8 or 12,
Yeah.
and then it just slowly builds as you get more steel on site and get it rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a nice job, neat job. I'm trying to think of one other one.
Do you guys have a satellite office there?
We do. Yeah, it's over in the Mount Pearl.
Yeah.
It's got a few office staff and then a crew as well with the union there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important. I mean, what we found in Newfoundland is you really need to have the presence on the ground, and you need to have Newfoundlanders working with Newfoundlanders. It's just there's a culture over there, and we came over probably 10 or 12 years ago. We followed some of our customers, Lindsay's and B.D. Stevens,
Yeah.
and that's why we set up an office over there, and it's worked out well because we're one of the only design build steel companies in Newfoundland that are willing to take that on. So
I think you brought up culture. I think in Atlantic Canada, I think construction not only is a backbone of the economy, but it's very cultural too. It's very core to all of us, and sort of a big part of our culture for everyone.
And I think it's a huge sector for Nova Scotia and PEI, and
Yeah.
I mean,
You guys do some work in New Brunswick too, PEI ever? Or sometimes?
Well, the
Little bit.
potato barns were over
Potato
in PEI.
barns, that's
I
right,
mean,
Cavendish Farms.
in New Brunswick, we've done a few jobs. We don't do as many, that's for sure. I'm trying to remember the last job we did over there. I'm sure something will come along as we talk, but we normally we're following our clients there because we're not up there looking constantly for that work. But like the Lindsays and the BDs, they'll go there, and then if we're happy to tag along and
yeah.
do the work with them when it happens.
Yeah. What else, guys? Anything else you guys want to get out there for for marriage or?
Why would you build a building with steel?
There you go. Yeah, so we mentioned the cost
Save the
of
best for
wood.
last.
Yeah, save the best for last. Why steel?
Um,
Simple question.
Yeah, so I'm a board member with the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction, and that's a big thing for them is trying to make sure that people are educated about why choose steel, and it comes down to it's safe, it's sustainable, and schedule. So safe, we do of any of the other materials, the wood and the concrete, we prefabricate as much as we possibly can in our shop where it's safe and it's warm and it's dry, and we really try to minimize the amount of on-site labor in uncontrolled conditions, right?
And it's recyclable.
And it's environmentally friendly, yes. Sustainable, so that goes to that. So I was in another discussion at one point, and the wood guy put up a slide of this beautiful rainforest and trees and moss and stuff like that, and it was lovely, and he was trying to pitch himself as very green and stuff.
Pull on the heartstrings.
Absolutely, and I'm thinking it doesn't look like that after you cut the tree down for a 2x4, right? So steel is it's recycled. So the steel in this building used to be a car or a washing machine and stuff like that. So they scrap is a huge deal, and most of the steel that's produced today is from old buildings, cars, whatever. They just melt it down, and you can melt it down infinitely, recast it, and make it again. And then the schedule piece, the potato barns was a great example. And we were able to get in there in July, and they're putting potatoes into those barns on the 1st of October. Because you do everything ahead of time, your activities on site are so much more controlled and minimized, and you can get buildings up far more quickly and reliably.
Yeah. That's why.
That's why. Anything to add, Greg?
Yeah.
Or what he said?
What he said. Yeah. No, I mean, and also, like I said, we can do it. Usually we're quicker. That's one of the reasons. The big things is the schedule-wise, and where we're a custom fabricator, we can build the building to the way the customer really wants it. Whereas there's some other types of steel buildings where more they're just taken to a certain shape, whereas that's not 100% our issue. We can build it any square, rectangle, whatever you want. We'll do the best we can with.
We'll moan and complain if you make it a curve, but we'll do it.
We'll accommodate it. But,
Yeah.
you know,
But it's easier to make those contours and shapes with
yes, with our
labor-wise
product, yeah. We can roll steel, we can bend
and
steel.
maintain structural integrity.
Yeah, so we have a lot more flexibility, and there's so many things that steel can go in. They can do a tilt-up building, they can do a conventional building, they can do a freezer panel building. So, I mean, we can fit into all those different criteria a lot better than other buildings.
Yeah.
So I think that gives us a little bit of advantage as long as we can keep the price within reason.
What about the climate? Does that factor in at all? With the high moisture and just the building with wood and steel, is there an advantage using steel because of that?
I think you make sure that you coat or you treat your building appropriately, right? We don't rot. If there's a situation where you think you might rust, you galvanize it or you put on a fancy coat of paint. There's ways. I mean, as long as you plan and you understand, there are all kinds of ways to deal with those issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Jason, what about? I know when we introduced you, your mention of certified gold seal project. Was that the Dow course?
No, that's through the Canadian Construction Association.
Oh, okay.
CCA. Yeah,
Right.
and that's CAN's Construction Association in Nova Scotia.
You're highly engaged with CAN, so
Yeah, no, for
See
sure.
it all the events.
They're great.
They are
They're
great.
great, and they're great for our. I mean, as I said, Tim's a board member. Tim was actually the past chairman of the board last year, so you can really kind of, if you want to talk to him a bit.
Give a shout out to the construction
But they
association.
are great.
He had the easiest year.
What's that?
He had the easiest year because of COVID, because they didn't meet very often, I assume.
Right.
Well,
Other than through Zoom, sorry.
No, but the CAN's like on a serious note, they advocate for us
100%.
in the industry, and
and
help make construction happen around here.
Yeah.
Honestly, CANS was very instrumental in keeping the construction industry open in the early days of COVID. They were meeting once a day or every couple of days just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. understood the safety piece and whatnot. So
They got a great team over there, so shout out to Cans as well.
Yeah,
We
100%.
thought Tim was mad at us because the door was shut all the time, but then we just figured out he was in another cans meeting.
Yeah, but those associations, they really do rally, and they are educating business owners about, funding and CWS and the rent subsidy and all the government's plans and stuff, and they do a great job facilitating that.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Where can people find you? I know, Jason, you mentioned all your social media and website. Maybe just mention that again, just so we can.
Yeah, for sure. So LinkedIn, you follow us on LinkedIn, Merit Industries Limited, Twitter @Merit Industries, and our website, www.merit.ca. So check us out and get in touch if you need. We'll be happy to help you out with any of your steel requirements.
Those are great plugs.
Yeah, Jason's the right guy. Jason's the right guy.
Practiced that.
He's got a radio voice. Any final thoughts or comments before we wrap up? Just anything maybe you wanted to kind of touch on that you didn't get a chance to, or
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should talk about
Maybe the company itself.
why people want to work with
There you
Merit.
go.
Other
Yeah.
than just dealing
Or
with
work
steel.
for
That's
us
a good-
too, Greg.
I think I was
For
supposed
sure.
to ask that question first and I forgot, so that's on me.
That's all right. We'll get it to work out.
So why? Well, yeah. What makes Merit stand out in the industry?
There's lots of things that make companies stand out because our competitors are good at what they do. We think we're good at what we do as well. So we're all good at what we do, but we think that we add another layer where we believe we're more flexible to work with. Especially on the design build side as well. We're willing to go and help the client out, figure their issues out, and we believe that goes a long way. The other thing that we have, a lot of our employees, I'd say most of them are long-term employees, so if the generals come back and dealing with, they're usually dealing with the same person over and over again. It's not like when you go to the bank, every time you go in, you got a new financial manager, it drives you crazy, right? Yeah. But here, every time you come, you're dealing with the same project manager, dealing with the same estimator. So there's time to build relationships within Merit and within our teams as well. So I believe that really goes
It's almost like a
way.
family.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is what brings people back because we really build our model on repeat business, return clients. That's what we want to do. That way we can concentrate on figuring out how they want to do things, and we can standardize stuff between the two companies. We know that they want it done that way, and this customer likes it done that way, and so we just change our hats to make it work for what they're looking for. And I believe they know that that's what we're going to do, and we become easier to work with as long as we can get in the budget, because sometimes the dollar controls a lot of what we do, unfortunately, but we think that people like coming back to us because we continually give them the service they're looking for.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good
Yeah.
pitch, Tim. I don't know if you.
I mean, the relationship piece, and we have long-term relationships with our employees. There's a guy who's going to retire at the end of April. He's 72 years old.
Is he retiring again, or sometimes they come back, right?
Yeah.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
So, I mean, we've got a long-term engaged workforce, but then the relationship piece with our customers, they recognize the fact that we listen and that we want to work with them. It's a conversation that I often have with our people. So, I mean, sometimes customers can drive you crazy, right? They want this and they want that and they want the other thing. And the philosophy and the message that I try to make sure that our folks understand and reinforce and whatnot is our business model is built on our customers and trying to find ways to give them what they need and or educate them, there's this other way. So maintain that relationship, and it's not Merit's way or the highway, but how do we work together to a successful outcome? And that's really sort of the core of what Merit does, and why we've got long-term customers, and why they keep on coming back, and why people trust us with their buildings.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the team side, right? Yeah. You don't feel like you're a number there, I hope. Like, and everybody tends to get along with everybody for the most part, and we have a fairly good group. Like when we meet in the boardroom to discuss problems and situations, it seems like everybody's there to come and find a solution to the problem. We're not in there thinking,
Not pointing fingers.
it's John Smith's problem. We don't have a John Smith working for us. It's just an easy name to pick, right? So it's we try to figure what the problem is, because if something went wrong, it's because we've done something wrong as a group, and we try to solve the problem, and so that we don't have that issue again.
How many? What's it, as leading up the estimating department and budgeting? Is it typically the same kind of 4 or 5 people you're bidding against, or is there the oddball Central Canada price here and there? Like, how's that pan out? I assume it's pretty
I'm not
tight.
going to give my competitors any airtime, but
You don't have to mention names.
there's at
just
least
for
3 major players
local.
and we would probably be one of those 3.
Yeah.
There's a couple smaller ones that will come in every now and then and probably enjoy taking a job from us, but it happens. And then if the jobs get big enough, we will draw attention from Central Canada, Quebec, but COVID has slowed that down a little bit because it's made it more complicated.
A little hard to travel.
Yeah, so it's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
But
Keeps on your toes, I suppose.
yeah, so there's good competition. There's probably more fabricators in Atlantic Canada than's required, so customers continue to get good pricing because of that.
Yeah. Doesn't make your job any easier.
No, so we have to learn to be more efficient and better at what we do all the time in order to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Right on, guys. Well, listen, I just really want to thank you guys for coming on. Really appreciate your time and the fact that all 3 of you guys are willing to come in. I know you're busy. You got lots to do. So really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure to chat with you guys about marriage.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dan.
Thanks for the opportunity, giving us. I mean, structural steel makes up a lot of the buildings that are all around us and whatnot. And it's neat to have an opportunity to talk about that, pass on a little bit of information, and talk about what we're passionate about. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.